Texas has no job opening right now, and yet there are rumors by the second coming out of Austin about the Texas coaching maybe opening, maybe search. Once upon a time, and this was kind of easy to do back once upon a time. Once upon a time, when it was coaching search season, all you had to do was pull up flightaware.com, and you had to know the university plane's tail number, of course. Whomst among us doesn't. And you could watch tail numbers, and you could just track real time where a plane from Austin, Texas, or Tuscaloosa, or Gainesville, or Auburn was taken off to, and where it was landing. And, you know, like back in the day in '09, when you saw a plane leave Auburn, Alabama, and land in Ames, Iowa, well, chances are they're interviewing Gene Chizik. Now, we need a leader, not a loser. 5 and 19 is not what we need. Yeah, that all resulted because someone had tracked a plane and knew that the Auburn Brain Trust was coming back, and they could just go confront him at the airport. Those were fun times. Those were simpler times. Then the FAA got involved, and they allowed people to block their tail numbers. And I'm all for privacy. But listen, we got a job to do too. And so here's what happens. Instead of hiding in bushes at the airport and just tracking tail numbers like normal people, now you're forced to do what our fine friends out in Austin, Texas found themselves doing over the past 48 hours. If you don't know about this, you're going to think I'm kidding you, but I'm not. These folks want Urban Meyer. I don't blame them for that. But these folks took the added 14 steps of seeing Urban Meyer do a live TV hit for someone. I can't even remember what it was about. And someone, somewhere along the way, looked at the hotel room that Urban Meyer was in and said, wait a minute, that looks eerily similar to a hotel that I know near the Austin area. And so let's pull up pictures from Google Image of that hotel, and let's compare them to what Urban's background looks like here. Oh, no, the shades look a little bit similar. Let's look at the roofing pattern. What about the wallpaper? Well, is this lighting really doing us any favors? That's what was happening yesterday. I'm not kidding with you. Folks thought that they had cracked the nut figuring out Urban Meyer was in Austin because of Google Images compared to a live TV feed of the hotel room he was in. It was a lot easier to just let these people track tail numbers. So thank you. You got what you asked for. This isn't a coaching search right now. I want to remind you of something, a couple of things actually. This is not a coaching search number one in technical terms because Texas has a head coach. It's also not a coaching search in more realistic terms because you're waiting. You're like sitting in a waiting room. Now, if Urban Meyer walks out or walks in, however you want to phrase that, and says, nope, I'm not your guy, then maybe it becomes a coaching search. How long are we going to have to sit here and wait? How long are they going to have to wait before they hear a definitive answer from Urban Meyer? You always hear either this weekend or in the next 48 hours. You will hear that. Those phrases are a dime a dozen in coaching searches. And really, if you were to ever go back and chart how accurate the next 48 hours or this weekend, by the end of this weekend, if you were to go back and chart how accurate that is, not very often. So I don't doubt that you'll eventually know something from him soon. But my question is this, and I'm not convinced of this. I've asked some Texas folks. I am not convinced one way or the other. How close is Texas to being on board with making a coaching change regardless of whether it's Urban Meyer? I was over looking at the Horns 24/7 board today, and I think Taylor Estes kind of posed this question, like if it's not Urban Meyer, who will it be? And my question to add on to that is, if it's not Urban Meyer, is it anyone at all? Like, is there still a path where, you know, like Herman wins against Kansas State Saturday and wins against Kansas, games that I don't think should be consequential at all, for the record, but maybe some people do. And if you get a no from Meyer and he ends the season having won the last two games, do they just renew him or let him stay for another year? Like, could that happen? Some of you are adamant, no, like the decision's been made, they're ready to cut the cord regardless. You know the principle we adhere to on this show. If you're going to make a move, have a definitive upgrade out there. How many, if Texas is of that same mentality, how many names outside of Urban Meyer do they see out there that are realistic to get, that they view as definitive upgrades? Some names that you're going to start hearing. Some of them are very interesting. A lot of them you're going to shake your head at as if to say, there's no way that's happening. Well, we'll see. I think if it's a no from Urban Meyer, you're going to see them make a serious run at Dan Mullen at Florida. I would always make a run at Brian Kelly. I've said that since the beginning of time. You guys can laugh at it or not. I think very highly of Brian Kelly. I think he'd knock it out of the park at any major Southern school. He's always felt like a coach that belongs at a Southern outpost. I know this is doing me no favors at Notre Dame. For the record, probably wouldn't say yes. So I'm just saying if I ran one of these programs, I admire your guy so much, I would come after him. That's what I'm saying. Mario Cristobal, is he in the mix there? Is Luke Fickell in the mix? Is that a guy who is looked at as the next star, or is that a guy who is looked at as the next Tom Herman? Because, Herman was thought of very highly when he was at Houston. He had fallen off that old Urban Meyer coaching tree, and he had started to knock it out of the park at Houston. Well, hey, if he's going to knock it out of the park in the Lone Star State, let's bring him to Austin and let him do it. If Luke Fickell, if he's going to dominate somewhere, it doesn't need to be Cincinnati. It needs to be Austin, Texas. Do enough people feel that way? Here's the bottom line, though. I still lean towards the fact that there's going to be a coaching change here. I have no clue what Urban Meyer is going to do. Obviously, he needs to be your 1A, and 1B, but all this feeling about Texas being the premier job in college football and therefore we should be able to go get essentially whoever we want to, that's either going to be validated definitively, or we're going to have a lot of hurt feelings in Austin. Because here's the worst thing that could happen. Worst thing that can happen is you make a move and you think that you've got prime coaching real estate here, which for the record I believe you do, but not enough people agree with that sentiment that I feel. And maybe the perception of your job in your mind versus the reality of the perception of the Texas job within the coaching world, maybe we find out that there's a large gap between those two feelings. I don't know. Hey, selfishly, I hope Urban Meyer takes the job and we don't have to worry about it.